Hi and welcome to the next tutorial. Today we'll be looking at how to put text behind a subject using masking in Adobe Premiere. So anyways guys, let's jump in. So I've just downloaded this video from Pexels, and it's just got a surfer and he doesn't really move that much, but the camera moves around him. So what we are going to do is we are going to create a mask that we can enable to put in text behind him. Now, I know masking, it takes a little bit of an effort to actually do, but honestly, once you get the hang of it, the results, it really speaks for themselves. So anyways, the first thing we need to do is we need to drag our video to our timeline. Once we've got our video on our timeline, we then can write some text. So I'm just gonna hit the T tool and I'm going to write some text in here. So once I have some text, I then can do a few things with the text. I can change the size up here. If you want it bigger than 400, you can just write in a value if you want. So let's say 500 or so. I can, align the text if I want. I can change the spacing of the characters. So I'm just gonna space it out a little bit, and I'm also pressing all caps. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make sure that that's centered, and I'm going to go into my essential graphics and I'm just going to make sure that I've put it into the center alignment. Okay, cool. So now I've got the text. I actually can increase that a little bit bigger. All right, cool. So now once I've done that, all right, I need to go to my opacity, and I need to change the opacity on the actual text. So I'm just going to drop it down to probably about 10%, maybe even a little bit more than that, so I can just barely see it, so I can still see the outline of the surfer. Once I've done that, then I need to find my pen tool, all right, and now I can actually start to draw a mask. Now I don't need to do the whole surfer, I really just need to do from down there. And so what it is that we need to do is we need to draw a mask around the subject. So I'm going to start off just from down here, and then I'm going to get into the fine details. Now I'm going to zoom in for this, so I'm going to double click on that, and I'm just going to go into, let's say 100%. Okay, so now I'm just going to use the pen tool, and I'm just going to click and drag and try and follow this surfboard as it goes around. Now if you want to make curves, you can click and hold the mouse, and if the points are too close to each other, you can draw another point there and then you can bring it down. So it doesn't have to be that accurate, but try and do your best. And if you make a mistake, you can always press Ctrl Z to undo that last point. And if you can't click on the actual pen tool point, you might have to zoom in a little bit more. Okay. And once you're finished, you need to make sure that you join up your shape again. So once you're happy with that, all right, we then can go back to our main window. And so now you can't see the text at all. So what you need to do is you need to go into this button over here and click Invert, and now you can start to see the text again. And so what we are going to do is we're going to have a play around with these two settings, mask feather and mask expansion. Now we're not going to go too high on this, but maybe we're just going to expand it by about 6, and I'm just going to even drop the mask feather by about 6. The mask feather just means how soft the edges are. So if you go and have a look, now you can see that there is a little bit of a gap, and you can see that it's a little bit softer. So once you've got that, you can see that as soon as I move it off that frame, all right, everything moves. So what we need to do is we need to start to actually animate. So to animate this, first we're just going to drag that text layer and make sure that it goes the whole time of the original clip, but we're just going to animate that mask. So we're going to click on the toggle animation for the mask path. We are then going to click on our mask, and then we need to, so I'm just going to double click up here, and now we need to scrub through and move what we've just created to go with the frames of the actual clip. So I'm just scrolling on my mouse, I'm just scrolling down, and you can see that it's moving slightly. So I'm just going to try and keep it covered. Now you don't have to do this every frame, but just as soon as you start to notice that things are looking a little bit strange, then you'll have to go in and move some of these clips around. Now again, it doesn't have to be perfect, but the more time you spend on this, honestly, the greater the results will actually be. So anyways, I'm going to work on this for the next couple of minutes, and I'll see you in a bit. So once you're done, you can double click to get back into our main menu, and we can see that now when we scrub through, that mask will follow that surfer. So what we need to do is we need to go back and we need to make sure that we change the opacity of the text to 100%. And you can see that as I go through, the text is now behind the subject. Now you can see that it's still a little bit off in certain sections. So what you need to do to be able to fix that is you need to go back in to your mask path, and then you have to go and find the right frame and then just re-edit it as well. So make sure you go through and just double check if you can make any more adjustments. So say for example, if you need to move it and readjust again, so this one's maybe a little bit too far. So anyways, so once you're happy with your mask, then we can do some of the final animations on here. Now, if you wanted to change the feather and maybe increase it up to about 10, that could also work, or maybe expand it a little bit more, just so that you can get that outline. If you don't like the outline, again, just make sure that you are changing the mask feather and the mask expansion. So the more accurate that you are, the less you need these kind of things, but I'll just keep it up like that. Anyways, the final thing that we need to do is we need to add our animation. So what we need to do is we need to go and click on the text layer, and all we are pretty much doing is we are going to be, I'm going to click on this text layer, we are going to be animating with scale. Alright, so all we're going to be doing is bringing it from small to large. Now as you can see that the anchor point is here, so what I want to do with the anchor point is I just want to put it into the middle so that when you do scale it, it comes from that point. So to do this, alright, and you want to make sure that you don't go past that point down there, because that's where the mask actually stops. So we're only going to put it to about there. Alright, so we're going to add a keyframe. I'm just going to click on that keyframe over here and move that to the end. Actually, I'll move it maybe to halfway, and then I'm just going to bring it down to, let's say, 20. And so now what that does is it creates this animation with the text behind the surfer. So the final thing that I've done is I put the adjustment layer on top. So I went to new adjustment layer and I just added some lumetri color, and I also added the crop. So lumetri color, you can just drag onto the adjustment layer, you can go into creative, and then you can find your looks, and you can see how it changes it and it gives it a certain look. So once you're happy with a certain look, you then can, you know, move on to the final bit. So there you go. I'm just gonna drop it down to about 40. All right, and then the final effect that I will put on here is the crop. So putting the crop, finding the crop section over here, and then just putting the crop 12 and 12 from top to bottom, and now you've got that cinematic look. So anyways guys, I hope you learned something today. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.